Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carl Eschenbach.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our final day of VMworld 2011. It's exciting to see so many people here in the audience this morning because I was actually quite nervous after attending the party last night and seeing a bunch of grown adults ride around in bumper cars, fishing for little fish, playing laser tag, and what really made me nervous was the fact on one table I saw over 500 glasses of beer that were being consumed at a world record pace. So I would like to thank all of you for showing up here this morning. I think we have an exciting morning with some of our customers we're going to spend some time with. Then obviously we'll close out with VMware CEO Paul Maritz. To open, I just wanted to talk about IT transformation. Because at this event we've talked a lot about IT transformation and how cloud computing has become very disruptive and helped our industry move forward in a way that allows us to deliver IT services much more easily to the consumers of IT itself. When I think of VMworld, I also think of transformation. And the reason I say that, over the years, VMworld has actually transformed as well. One, from being a VMware user group meeting to now actually being an industry event and an industry conference. And all you need to do is go to the Solutions Exchange and see the vast number of ecosystem partners that are here now displaying their technologies and how they work or interact with VMware's cloud infrastructure solutions. So we've gone through a transformation at the conference. The other transformation we've seen at the conference is how our users are collaborating. This is now an event where a significant amount of the presentations that are given at all the breakout sessions and even the super sessions are actually being presented by our customers. And there's a lot of panels that take place, and we thank you for being part of this. And what we're seeing is this collaborative effort amongst yourself. And through collaboration, you're all finding and experiencing new ways to deliver IT services. And here this morning, I have the great pleasure to bring on stage 3 of our industry-leading, innovative companies to share their success stories with you and talk about how they're going through their own IT transformation leveraging VMware solution. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and get started. Our first customer is a brand that I'm sure everyone in the audience here recognizes. And many of you have already seen their products at the VMware booth in the Solutions Exchange. They're pretty amazing products. One of the leaders of Italy's Silicon Valley of speed, their well-known red shield, their beautiful design, and their masterful engineering has been a symbol of dominance in the world of motorcycle racing since 1923. It gives me great pleasure to introduce first, via video, Ducati.
Ducati is not a very big company, so to compete we need to be fast and flexible. We have a company which sells only 40,000 bikes a year and only 1,000 people. We compare with companies that are 2 orders of magnitude bigger than us. But I think that the nice thing about us is the fact that when you buy a Ducati, you buy a story.
The Ducati is not just a red cool bike, but there's something more. There is heritage, there is history, there is passion, and passion is a thing that you cannot buy from a supplier.
Our cloud is 100% implemented on VMware technology. And I think that the last 2 years I've had 0 downtime in terms of infrastructure to support production.
Performance and reliability are the 2 key issues for us. Performance, you know, we are racing, so we must be performant. We must go faster. The lap time have to decrease each time we test. And the same is for our services. The same is for what we provide to our customers.
The reason why we have chosen VMware was because it was a no-brainer. Okay, it's a very simple decision. Was clearly the leader in the market. Whatever we needed to do, VMware was able to do. But I think that most important is, rather than why we have chosen VMware, why we are staying with VMware, VMware has never failed us. We have grown in terms of demands and of requirements, and VMware has grown in terms of capabilities and ability to support us. My frank opinion is that, honestly, when you choose VMware, you know that you have a solution which is always going to support you.
We are small, but we are competitive.
Please join me in welcoming to stage the CIO of Ducati, Daniel Bellini, and Electronic Systems Manager, Roberto Canè. Hello, Daniel. Thanks for joining me, Daniel. Hi, Roberto. How did I do on your name, Roberto?
Yeah, perfectly.
All right, very
good.
So, Daniel, why don't we start off with you and tell us a little bit more about Ducati and the role technology plays at Ducati Motors.
Absolutely. Well, as I've said in the video, you know, Ducati is a relatively small company, but at the same time, we have all the complexities of a multinational manufacturing company, be it in terms of product configuration, supply chain complexities, or distribution network articulation. So in my opinion, technology makes it possible to combine business requirements, competitive requirements, with existing economical and human resources.
Yeah, so you said you're manufacturing about 40,000 bikes a year, and we were talking earlier,
Correct.
Some of your competitors are manufacturing 2 million bikes a year.
Correct.
So you have all the same complexities in the IT systems, but you're competing with much bigger competitors.
That's exactly the situation.
So I understand, Daniel, that you actually have 95% of your environment virtualized. Is that accurate?
I think that's even a bit conservative. Maybe it's slightly more than that. Probably
Okay.
something like in the range of 97%.
Okay. 97%?
Yes.
Okay, I apologize
Almost
for the
everything.
error.
Yeah.
So that means there's a couple things that aren't virtualized yet. What's not virtualized? Because we'd like to get to 100% virtualization.
Oh, yes, I know. I would like to reach that too. I have a couple of solutions. I have an old AS400, which is going to be dismissed next year, and an AX-based solution, which is also going to go in July 2012. So it's almost there.
Okay, great. And I understand they're Oracle solutions.
Well, IBM and Oracle. I
great.
hope
Well,
there
they
is no
run-
one from Oracle inside in the room, but yes.
Okay. Well, Oracle runs great on top of VMware, so I think it'll work just great.
Good to know that. You know.
So to get 95, 97% virtualized, you had to have some pushback from the key stakeholders within, you know, the organization. And how did you overcome that objection initially?
I think most of the companies here will have done the same. So we started with a conservative approach, step by step. We went virtual with some services, internal services. We quickly proved that we were achieving service levels which could not be matched by traditional solutions. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, it was simple. We ended up migrating domain controllers, SharePoints, database servers, whatever was in the landscape of applications ended up being virtual.
Yeah, that's great. So what's next? Being that highly virtualized, what's next on your IT transformation?
Couple of things. We are in the middle of testing Director to understand whether we can provide a bit of self-service environment to the lines of business, understand new opportunities there. We have implemented View, I think, a little more than 2 years ago. We would like to extend it further, going towards users who have higher requirements from physical resources. And I was actually amazed by what I saw on Tuesday in Steve Harrett's presentation. I think that next big thing will be being able to take advantage of new mobile devices, deploy new services there.
Yeah, that's great. So let's shift gears a little bit, Daniel. Has Ducati looked at leveraging any type of public cloud operators out there?
Well, honestly, in the last few months, I have met a number of people from different providers suggesting solutions over the public cloud, but I haven't seen any, for Ducati, real advantage so far.
But if someone were to come to you with a SLA that's similar to what you're delivering internally in your own private cloud at a more cost-effective solution, would you consider it in the future?
For sure. I have already set some requirements, so I'm glad to share them here. So basically, over the public cloud, my objective would be to reach virtually unlimited peak performance, so something that is extremely performant, but at the same time being able to scale down to almost zero, at zero cost, in zero time, automatically. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, what I'm looking for is a cost model which is purely based on consumption. Mm-hmm. It's not tied by any means to peak performance. So comparing the two solutions, public versus private, over a, for example, 3 years, 4 years time frame, it should be totally clear that the public cloud is extremely more cost competitive than the private one.
So if I heard you right, it sounds like you put a challenge out to some of our service provider partners in the audience, so be careful, your phone might be ringing soon.
Absolutely. I will not take any of those calls. Give some emails and put some real numbers in there.
A typical CIO. The way to get in touch with you is email. That's great. So, Roberto, you're part of Ducati's racing IT team, and you've also built your own private cloud, but you also get IT services back from Daniel as well.
Yeah, that's right. I'm in charge of electronic system, and in particular manage IT for Ducati Corsair department. And it's also true that we have our own private cloud for specific racing application, even if we use a lot private cloud of Daniel's, of course.
So why did you decide to build your own private cloud specifically for the racing unit?
Yeah, because we have a specific application that we would like to expand with a platform that was able to guarantee zero downtime. That's important not only for R&D guys that works during the day and access those services. In particular, it's important for track people that during racing weekends access our private cloud all the time. So for us, it's mandatory to have a seamless service and transparent intervention, since we don't have any manutention window where to act as the other. What Daniel said in the video is true also for us, because with VMware, we literally have had zero downtime also during the racing weekends.
Wow, so for the last 2 years, you've had zero downtime in IT and at the track as well.
As well.
That's great.
Yeah.
So what other business benefits are you getting out of your private cloud other than just reduction in your downtime?
Yeah, for me, the main benefit is agility. Since we have a lot of requests from the field, and we can deploy a new application with a simple click of the mouse. And we can do this regardless of the underlying physical structure, saving a lot of time and saving a lot of work, of course. And regarding servers, their configuration and their performances are not an issue anymore, because scaling to a new technology is as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So Daniel and Roberto, before I let you go, we have 7,000 of our closest friends, colleagues, and peers here in the room. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave with them before we send you back to your seats and bring up our next guest?
Yes. First of all, just to say that this audience is impressive. And I think that the most important thing is that if I look back 4 years in time when we started our journey, I think that we have changed the rules of the game. So we have changed the balance of power between Ducati IT and existing software and hardware vendors in our favor.
Yeah, okay.
Luckily. And same thing happened with the business. So what previously were issues now are solutions.
That's great. And Roberto, how about you?
Yeah, just one sentence. If you want to forget about troubles, don't forget about VMware.
I like that. If you want to forget about troubles, don't forget about VMware. Well, that's the best plug you could have given us all day. Gentlemen, thanks for being on stage today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Roberto, thank you. Our next customer is a leading global operator of financial markets and a provider of innovative trading technologies. Their exchanges in Europe and the U.S. trade equities, futures, options, fixed income, and exchange-related products and solutions. The company's technology unit, NYSE Technologies, offers a wide range of services that many of the world's largest financial institutions are being powered by. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you via video NYSE Euronext.
Cloud computing is not a necessarily new concept. Ours is very much focused on the needs of the capital markets community.
We support exchanges and clients all around the world, and that means that none of us ever sleep. It means that we've got to solve different clients, different cultures, different ways of doing things, different regulatory structures. It's different and yet the same. And our job is to try to find solutions that really work for all of those.
Across our portfolio, we have over 1,000 clients, so about 600-700 buy-side firms and the equivalent on the sell side.
We want to be more secure because we need to be, because our customers demand it. We need to be more reliable. We need to have higher performance in our systems because performance is extremely important in our industry.
We are in the business of providing cost-effective services to our clients globally. There is no question that the business model of most of these market participants is under threat. They're trying to make money in a global fragmented market where it's really tough for them to develop and deliver services on a global basis consistently. So they're looking to us to provide those services for them, and we're looking to VMware to help us deliver that.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage Senior Vice President of Global Platform Services, Ken Barnes, and Product Manager of Infrastructure on Demand, Phil Radin. Ken, Phil, please join me. Hi, Ken. Welcome. Hi, Phil. Welcome. How are you guys? Thanks for joining me up here today.
All right.
So, Ken, let's start off with you. Can you share a bit more about NYSE Euronext and the role it plays in the capital markets and, for that matter, the global economy as a whole?
Sure. NYSE Euronext is actually a constellation of exchanges from around the U.S. and Europe, actually dating back to 1602, not too far away in Amsterdam. Throughout those 400 years, we've been in the business of connecting counterparties, helping buyers find sellers, and helping capital seekers find capital investors.
It's amazing, 400 years of business. So to be successful over 400 years, you've had to leverage technology to continue to re-innovate yourself. So talk about what technology is doing to help you be successful.
Yeah, and that technology has changed a little bit over the years. We weren't virtualized 400 years ago, but we've made the transition. You've seen us deploy things like carrier-grade networks and co-location facilities around the world over the last few decades. Most recently, it's led us to launch new innovations like this latest one, the Capital Markets Community Platform, which at its heart is infrastructure as a service.
Yeah, so it is technology, really. The service you're offering back to your customers is technology-based, clearly.
Without a doubt.
So it sounds like you have a great vision, Ken, and you guys are doing well at NYSE,
Yep.
Euronext and Technologies, but who's doing the heavy lifting and implementing this stuff?
This guy.
Phil. So, Phil, tell us about what you're doing. You're the product manager of Infrastructure on Demand. Share with us what you've been doing.
Sure. So, actually, I am a product manager, but we do have a dedicated, very amazing team who's out there helping to design and support our cloud.
Great. So you both have very obviously different roles. Talk about how the implementation of your private cloud has changed your partnership with the customers you're supporting. Let's start off with you first, Ken.
Well, listen, the big thing on our customers' mind these days are two things: regulatory change and the changing competitive climate. Regulatory-wise, regulations both in Europe and the U.S. are having a dramatic impact on their business, but competitively, the business has never been more competitive. And that's requiring them to think of IT in a new vision.
Great. Phil, how about you?
So we've essentially been put in a position where the cloud has enabled us to create a service-enabled cloud. Specifically, this has allowed us to create a dynamic platform where we're combining and weaving together market data, historical data, order routing, and turning that all into a platform that our business partners can use to work with.
So, gentlemen, we at VMware believe that a hybrid cloud is going to be the most efficient way to deliver IT services in the future. How do you plan on building a hybrid cloud or leveraging public cloud services? And in a lot of cases, how do you leverage them back to your own customer?
Sure. So we were expecting our customers to take advantage of VMware's vCloud connector technology. They're going to be able to use that tool to migrate workloads both to and from multiple clouds in their environments.
Yeah, and something new we're bringing to the table is what we call community cloud. We're trying to offer a lot of the benefits of a public cloud, the scale economics, the efficiencies, but doing it in a community context where this cloud is only available for the capital markets with the services that the capital markets thrive on. Real-time data, historical archive data, and order routing services.
So Ken, if you think about it, this community cloud specifically for the capital markets is really a form of a hybrid cloud approach right now, because they all have their private clouds today, but they're going to use technologies like vCloud Connector to federate into your offering. So you're already really effectively offering a hybrid cloud approach to your customers.
Yeah, that's the balance we're trying to strike.
That's great. So what about security? Let's talk about security. We'll start off with you, Phil. Obviously in the financial market, there's a lot of compliance and security things that people need to adhere to. How did you work with the security groups to implement your cloud solutions, and what has been the effect of that as you go out and talk to your customers?
Sure. So we've built this multi-tiered security system by combining VMware's vShield technology, hardware-based firewalls, switch software and ACLs, and then finally isolated private VLANs. Finally, we've taken the extra step of deploying security monitoring tools to really make sure that we're protecting against potential security threats.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, you have to look no further back than a couple weeks ago to see the threats posed to our industry with some of the things related to Occupy Wall Street. That was actually a proud weekend for us in the way we've held those threats. But security is certainly top of mind to the executive layer of the company.
And speaking of security, for people to actually take advantage of your capital markets community cloud, they have to be part of the safety network, which is basically something that was launched after 9/11. Could you talk about that with the audience?
Yeah, that was that carrier-grade network I mentioned. It's a private network, very high capacity, 10 gig ports typically used by our customers, and it spans the globe. That is the only on-ramp onto our cloud. It's not a internet-facing service.
So let's talk about the future and the road that lies ahead. What gets you excited about what we're doing with technology and cloud computing in the future? Let's start off with you first, Bill.
Sure. So as I mentioned, vCloud Connector is definitely a tool our customers are going to incorporate. Alongside that, we're planning on exposing the vCloud API to allow our customers to programmatically provision and control their virtual data resources.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm excited to take this global. We launched in the U.S. Back in the summer. We're going to be live here in Europe in Q1 in our Basildon data center, which is to the east of London. From there, we're already deploying out into Toronto and Tokyo, and we're just getting started here, Carl.
That's great. That's exciting. So before I let you gentlemen off the stage, any final thoughts? Like I asked the folks from Ducati, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the audience before we bring our next guest up? Let's start with you first, Phil.
Sure. So we've built this multi-tenant, low-latency community cloud that's really designed for the capital markets community. And we're really looking forward to offering new products and new services as we continue to grow.
Yeah, I guess my parting thought would be just be appreciative for the moment we have here. You don't need to look any further than the papers to see all the challenges that we have in the global economy. But what's exciting for us and gets us out of bed every day is the moment that we're in this industry and the ability we have to change the way we really do things and change the economics of IT. So that's something special to be appreciative of.
Well, great. Well, we certainly appreciate the partnership we have with you, and I think back in May, we were the first, companies to ever launch a true vertical community cloud, and we look forward to servicing the capital markets, community in a much more efficient way as we go forward. Thanks for joining me on stage.
Thank you,
Ken,
Carl.
Phil. Thank you. Our third and final customer, if you're in IT, is a brand I'm sure you all will recognize. This company is a market leader in enterprise application software that helps companies of all sizes run better. Their applications and services enable more than 170,000 global customers to manage costs, drive agility, and to actually be able to grow long term. It gives me great pleasure to introduce SAP.
The difference between IT shops in other industries and SAP is that we are not only responsible for running the business systems, but that we're also responsible for providing the production means, what the software developers need for developing, for instance, new products. SAP is not in the business of running data centers, we're not in the business of running thousands of servers, and still we have to.
Virtualization is a key for the scalability of our infrastructure we provide to our developers as well as for the production infrastructure of SAP.
Virtualization provides you to change completely the game, how you're running infrastructure and how you're driving value out of the infrastructure. And it's not a pure technology play, it's very much also a business play.
What people are looking for is what is SAP's recommendation and what does SAP recommend are the best practices for doing virtualization. And here the partnership between VMware and SAP greatly helps our customers and us as an internal service provider to make the right choices for virtualization.
But what my customers really want is they want to have faster time to service. What I can do with virtualization, I can substantially lower that time. I mean, we have self-service cloud services available, which allow me to provision development systems within hours.
Currently, we are implementing more than 80% of all our new servers as virtual ones on a VMware platform, and we have already reached nearly 60% virtualization level on our global basis of servers.
I think we have a very good strategic relationship with VMware and SAP.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage SAP Senior Vice President of Global IT Infrastructure Services, Dr. Wolfgang Krips, and Vice President of IT Infrastructure Management, Dr. Dietmar Reinelt. Wolfgang, welcome. Dietmar, welcome.
Pleasure.
Good to see you, gentlemen. So let's start off with you, Wolfgang, and describe SAP's Global Infrastructure Services team and the role it plays within SAP.
So this department or group is responsible for providing all of SAP's infrastructure, from the front end, so laptops, network, to the back end, plus operating all of SAP's systems. Just to give you an idea, we're operating about 7,000 SAP systems of various sizes on 40,000 servers.
Wow. So Dietmar, can you talk a little bit about the private cloud that you've implemented and share with the audience some of the statistics on it?
For sure, Carl. We started 10 years ago with virtualizing our first servers. Today, we reached 85% virtualization rate in all new servers deployed. We operate several internal clouds with overall more than 25,000 virtual machines, 25 lab manager landscapes, and more than 1,000 ASX hosts. Through virtualization and the benefits by increasing the utilization of our infrastructure, we have been able to gain benefits and realize efficiencies and lower our TCO for us and our customers.
That's great. So Wolfgang, you mentioned in your video you're providing training services, but are you actually running any production applications that's actually running the business for SAP on your private cloud?
Yes. So on the business systems, we basically virtualized all application servers. But I just want to also point out that the training, the demo, and the consulting business and the development business completely virtualized. Mm-hmm. And what I also want to make sure is that the training business for us is revenue generating, which means if the virtual infrastructure is down, it's the business systems that are down, and we have an immediate impact to SAP's revenue.
Right, okay. So not only is internal IT being run on this private cloud, but also revenue generating services as well.
Exactly.
Now, we can't let that go down, can we?
Nope.
All right, great. So tell me a little bit about your relationship and how it's changed with the business, Dietmar, since you've implemented the private cloud, and what is the business benefit they're getting in their interaction with you now?
I mean, it clearly changed, Carl. I mean, we used to be seen as a pure infrastructure provider, not deeply integrated into their processes, and sometimes perceived as not really adding high value, but only medium value. With introducing our internal cloud, our self-services, and that's the main part they are looking for, we not only improve the flexibility, the speed, how we can deliver, but we are now really integrated into their delivery processes of our customers. Their success clearly depends on our ability to deliver these services seamlessly, fast, and reliably to them. To give you an example, all our demo folks are currently able, through a self-service portal, to generate their own landscape, portal system, whatever they need to do their demos.
So Dietmar, talking about self-service, we go back probably 3 or 4 years in partnering and helping you provide that first self-service infrastructure with a product called Lab Manager. And we've implemented it pervasively across your infrastructure, but now you're going to move to a new solution. Can you share about that migration and what you're looking to do to provide a different level of self-service?
Yes, I mean, our partnership, honestly, Carl, is longer than 3 years, I would say. It's even 10 or 11 or 12 years, I guess. Self-services for our customers are mission-critical services. We will expand them. They need them. They need them to generate new business opportunities. We will migrate to the vCloud Director and, of course, include also some of your new products like vShield, vCloud Connector, and the products which have been announced here on this conference, this management suite. So we are hoping for a huge benefit for that to offer more extensive services to our internal customers.
That's great. So Wolfgang, you heard the gentleman from Ducati and from NYSE Euronext talk about public clouds and hybrid clouds. What's your thoughts as a company at SAP about the potential of leveraging public cloud services in the future?
I mean, from my perspective, pretty obvious, and those of you that had been here in VMware 2009 in the keynote, I already said that our cloud strategy right from the beginning is based on hybrid cloud model. SAP, and that's what I also said in the video, we're not in the business of running data centers, not in the business of administering millions of servers. The issue is that I want to focus on the things that I really have to do because nobody else can do it. If somebody else can do other parts better than I do at lower cost, more than welcome to use it. And that's why I think a hybrid cloud model fits nicely.
That's great. So Dietmar, let's talk about organizational designs and changes you've had to go through as you've seen cloud computing drive convergence of not only the infrastructure, but of organizational designs as well. How are you able to get through some of your organizational design challenges along this way?
I mean, clearly virtualization on all layers adds some complexity. To manage and to support these services, a tight collaboration between the different traditional disciplines or technology towers has to occur. Server, storage, network, security, and so on have to work closer together. And we clearly realize that with the convergence of the technology, also these units have to converge. And maybe there's in the future an overarching new technology tower called cloud management or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Wolfgang, can you talk about the relationship you have with VMware, both locally, in Germany, as well as back at our corporate headquarters in Palo Alto, California?
More than happy to do so. Typically, I say we moved our offices very close together, right?
Yeah, since they're in the same complex, yeah.
But the relationship basically is on two levels. We have a strategic one with headquarters in Palo Alto, and we need this because I have to provide, as SAP develops products that are mainstream 2 years from now. So I need to provide services that are mainstream 2 years from now. And I can do this only if we have a good relationship and that we do some forward-looking, let's say, joint activities so that I can provide those services that the development needs today. On the operational level, and Dietmar mentioned that already, the issue that you have, for instance, when you're doing performance optimization in clouds, it's a multidimensional and multifunctional effort, and we need to have VMware on site to help us there. Because these are very, very tricky problems, even though most of the problems, I admit, are very often in the application layer. Mm-hmm. But typically, when you have a problem, people first call and say, hey, we're having an issue with the cloud.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. And for those of you here in the audience, I can assure you that these two gentlemen push VMware harder than all of you combined and are always on the leading edge in pushing our technologies, and we thank you for the feedback you provide to us in our R&D organization. So before I let you two gentlemen off the stage, any final thoughts you'd like to share as our last guest here on stage today?
Well, let me summarize it from my point. Cloud is a challenge, but it's worth undergoing it. I just can give you the advice. Don't wait. Start now. Explore the benefits, and be sure your customer will thank you for it.
That's great. Thanks. Wolfgang?
Yes. So my remarks would be, if you go into cloud, make sure that you limit the complexity, that you start small with a field that you understand very well, and basically learn there, and then aggressively expand.
That's great. Gentlemen, thanks for your partnership, and thanks for being here at VMworld 2011.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Wolfgang.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. So I'd like to thank all of our guests one more time for joining us and collaborating with you and sharing their own success stories. Clearly, they're innovative in their own way, and they're inspiring leaders within their own IT organizations driving that transformation. With that being said, it's time to turn the stage over to VMware's own innovative and inspiring leader, our CEO, Mr. Paul Maritz.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today, and I would like to also add my thanks to those customers for sharing with us today. I'm going to start off by recognizing a statistic that the analysts are reporting to us, which is that we've reached a milestone in the industry, which is more than 50% of x86-based server applications today are running on virtualized infrastructure. This is not only a run rate statement, but it's actually a statement about the entire installed base. And the analysts tell us that this number is now increasing at a rate of about 9 to 10% a year. So this has become the dominant way of supplying computing in the data center. I've just come from earlier this week from the Gartner conference in Florida, so I have the statistics fresh in my mind, and the Gartner says that of those 50% of the applications, about 75% are running on top of vSphere. So that means that approximately a third of the world's applications today run on a vSphere foundation. And that is really an amazing thing to happen, and it's really come about by the cooperation of most of you, many of you in the audience, and we'd like to share this success with you. One way of dimensionalizing that is to look at some statistics. We think that means that a VM is born about every 6 seconds now. That's faster than the rate at which humans are being born in the United States. I'm not sure if that's really a good thing or a bad thing. That if you add them up, that means more than 20 million virtual machines running on top of vSphere today. It means that if you take our statistics on vMotion, that there are more virtual machines in flight at any one time than there are aircraft in flight. It means that all of this is being administered by a community of 800,000 administrators, supported by greater than 68,000 certified professionals, and a large community of ISV partners and applications that have been certified on top of the vSphere platform. So thank you very much. We really appreciate the support that we've got from all of you over the years. I'm going to take a step backwards now and provide some greater context to what Steve Harrod on Tuesday and Raghu shared with you yesterday, and look at really what's happening in our industry from my perspective and the VMware perspective. Now, I'm unfortunately old enough to have started my career in the mainframe age. I in fact, started working in London in 1978, got a job at a mainframe company called Burroughs, and if you even remember that word, you're dating yourself. And I was a newly minted computer science graduate, and I showed up there expecting to work on Big Iron. And instead, for my sins, they gave me a job debugging the firmware in the printer of the world's first ATM machine, which I thought was a huge come down in life. But it was actually a blessing in disguise, because it took me in a very different direction into the client-server world, the PC world, etc., and actually took me in the direction of where things were going. But if you break the world up into three major areas, the mainframe area, then the client-server/web area, and now the cloud era, one way of characterizing these areas is to look at the changes that have occurred in applications, data fabric, and infrastructure. The mainframe area was really driven by a set of applications that were essentially automated financial applications, automated bookkeeping, if you like. And those applications largely sat on ISAM data structures. Very successful, obviously. But then when we went into the client-server area, a couple of things changed. For the first time, we started to see enterprise technologies starting to interact with technologies that were coming out of the consumer world. We saw the PCs occur, and we saw a set of technologies introduced by PCs and Unix systems into the enterprise space. We saw new programming languages, we saw the graphical user interface, and we saw a new set of canonical applications come in here. We saw CRM systems, e-commerce systems. For the first time, we started to see large-scale analytics came in, and these applications were built upon a new data structure, upon a new data fabric, relational database. And by and large, this era, the client-server era, and even the first phase of the web, has really been characterized by this three-tier architecture based upon these programming techniques and the relational database. Obviously, also being very successful, caused literally millions of servers that we have out there to come into existence. And this is a huge investment that the industry has now in these applications and the data fabrics and the infrastructure underneath them. Now, however, we're going into the cloud era. And one way of characterizing that era is to look at it as the next major phase of the interaction of consumer-based technologies starting to not only influence what's happening in the enterprise, but even dominate what's happening in the enterprise. We have not just hundreds of millions of people connected via the web on PCs, but we're going to have billions not only of people and devices, but sensors and other sources of information now feeding into the pool of information. We're already starting to see new programming technologies and standards come into place. HTML5, the new generation of programming frameworks. And most importantly, I think we're going to see a new set of applications. A set of applications that speak to the fact that to be competitive in business in the future, you're going to have to be able to gather in information from many more sources, analyze that information in real time, and respond in real time. It's no longer going to be sufficient simply to capture information, put it into a giant data warehouse, and find out what happened last month or the month before that. Increasingly, people are going to want to be able to service the Facebook generation in context, in real time. I was talking to the CIO of a large supermarket chain a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying they have to move from a world where today the only time they really touch their customers is when the customer gets to the checkout counter. When the customer gets to the checkout counter, they've already made all their decisions. They've got everything in their shopping cart. He says, we have to reach people before they make decisions. We need to get advance warning that people are approaching our shop. We want to be able to track them as they move through the shop. We want to be able to see that they're paused for more than 2 minutes in front of the milk counter. If so, we want to construct a personalized offer for them, have that appear on their smart device in real time. To do that, they've got to integrate information from many, many more sources, from people's personal devices, from infrared motion cameras. All sorts of stuff has to come together, and it has to happen in real time. Those kind of applications cannot be done on the traditional three-tier architecture. And this is going to require new data fabrics to come into the environment with a corresponding change in the infrastructure that goes with it. And what this really speaks to is the real challenge that I think businesses face as we go from the client-server era to this cloud era is, in fact, not just that they need to take operational expense out of infrastructure, but we've got to apply that to a new generation of applications, which is where business value will really be realized. So it is in this context that we look at the challenges that we, VMware, are going to try and sink our teeth into. What we see ourselves as doing is, first and foremost, given that customers already have a huge investment in that generation of three-tier client-server applications, which they cannot walk away from anytime soon, how do we work at the infrastructure level to help take operational cost out of the environment? Virtualization is a key technique, as we'll see, to do that. Having taken operational cost out of the infrastructure, we need to then enable that to be applied to what will be the big story of the coming decade, which is application renewal and innovation. Being able to respond to a new generation of consumers in real time, in context. And those consumers, whether they're being inside the enterprise or outside the enterprise, are going to want to see the results of those applications presented to them in a world where the device that they hold in their hands will be dictated by what's going on in the consumer world, not what's going on in the enterprise world. We need to be able to project information in a timely and appropriate way to users anytime, anywhere, on any device, and do so securely. So it's these three challenges of taking cost, especially operational cost, out of the infrastructure, freeing up the time and effort to go after the core things that really encode business value, which are the applications, and allow the fruit of those applications to be presented to users who are going to want to increasingly see that in the way that they want to consume information in the context that's useful to them. So we look at the investments that we're making as falling into these three categories. First and foremost, in terms of operational efficiency, at this point in time, virtualization is a very well accepted way of doing things. Virtualization is the starting point for operational efficiency, because when you virtualize, what you're in essence doing is encapsulating an existing application. You're putting that application into a black box, figuratively speaking, which allows you to jack that black box up, slide new functionality in underneath it, eventually slide the black box around. And a lot of the work that we're doing in our core vSphere product is to be able to handle the entire range of applications, to make sure that we can encapsulate not just the tier 2 and 3 applications, but the most demanding mission-critical applications. So you see us consistently, year by year, extending the capabilities of vSphere to the point now where we can handle, as Steve was talking about on Tuesday, truly monster virtual machines that have terabytes of virtual memory associated with them, multiple virtual CPUs, extremely high rates of I/O, all of the things that very demanding applications require, so that we can get all applications onto a common substrate. Because it's by getting things into a common substrate, a bigger pool, that we can then start to really work on not only resiliency, but operational efficiency. So our next step here is to look at and say, what do we need beyond virtualization to really get maximal operational efficiency out of infrastructure? And for that, we use the shorthand of a private cloud. And we're working very hard to assemble a complete suite of products that will allow you to realize complete efficiency in the private cloud. That starts obviously with virtualization, which is the layer that provides that resource pooling and the automatic scheduling of resources in that pool. It adds in the functionality you need for cross-data center disaster recovery. It adds in new ways of doing management, because when you move to a bigger pool of resources, that means you're going to have more and more applications eating out of the same pool. You're no longer managing on a silo-by-silo basis. It means that if you're the custodian of that big pool of underlying infrastructure, you have a different set of needs. You have to be able to ascertain the health of your pool in an application-independent way. You can no longer rely on the health of any one application to tell you the overall health of your pool. And what's more, if you turned on all of the logging capabilities of all the elements in that pool will throw so much information to you as you grow that pool that no human being could make head or tail of it. So what we've implemented in our vCenter operations suite at the core of it is actually an example of one of these new real-time analytic applications that I was talking about. We apply modern analytic statistical analysis to that flood of information coming out of that pool to build a statistical model of your infrastructure, and then we sit monitoring the infrastructure, comparing it in real time against that model we've built. And every now and then we tell you you've gone outside the bounds of what's normal. And here are the things that we think have driven you outside of the bounds of normal. A fundamentally different approach to management. We need to add in the security. Today, applications are protected by a set of functions that go around the application. Every application has specific firewalls, load balancers, data loss engines, antivirus engines associated with it. So the actual unit of the scheduling, what has to be provisioned and then run, is not just the application, but all of those protective functions that surround an application. Today, a lot of those protective functions are encoded in physical hardware. That means that you can if that happens, then you can't slide the application around in order to take best advantage of the pool. It means that those protective functions have to themselves become virtualized. They, in essence, become adjuncts to the application that then need to be scheduled by the system so that when we move an application around, we can guarantee that all of its protective functions are moving with it. That's what vShield allows us to do. It's the framework that allows us to work with our partners in the industry to allow them to virtualize their firewalls, their load balancers, their antivirus engines, etc. And we're working with all the partners that you would expect us to be working with there. Lastly, we have vCloud Director, which, if you like, is the user interface to all of this. This is where we expose this pool of infrastructure to the customers of that infrastructure. That's where they can come in and basically specify what services they want and how they want them. Specify in terms of security, that's where we handle multi-tenancy, and that's where over time we'll increasingly introduce the SLA policies that the rest of the infrastructure will react to. So what we're working on is a complete suite to achieve ultimate operational efficiency at the infrastructure level. We have all of the members of the suite in existence now, and our goal is to now move these technologies forward as a suite. We want to get them to go out on the same schedule. We will take the time to make sure they're properly tested together, that the edges don't interfere with each other, etc., so that you don't have to spend time doing that. Businesses, as you heard earlier, increasingly view infrastructure as a means towards an end. It's not the end. Infrastructure is not what's going to differentiate, at the end of the day, one business from another. It's incredibly important. It has to be there. It has to be rock solid, reliable. But over time, it just needs to work and fade away into the woodwork. To do this, we need an integrated approach for that to really happen. The other interesting thing we're trying to do is to say, as we automate infrastructure, we want to give our customers the option as to whether they do that on-premise, do it on-premise using assembling all the pieces themselves, doing it on-premise and purchasing it as a managed service, run on-premise, or purchasing it out of an external data center as a managed service. So we firmly believe that those should be business decisions, not technology decisions. That you should be able to make the right business decisions as to when you want to implement your own infrastructure, when you want somebody else to come and drop it into your environment, or whether you want to rent it out of the cloud. And we are working with a large set of partners to really make that a reality. We heard earlier about partnerships we have in the community clouds that are focused on a certain industry. Good example was the work that NYSE Euronext is doing. Harris is doing one in the US now around the healthcare space. and we expect to see several more of these over the coming months and years. We also work with a larger set of service providers. Some of these, the biggest names in the world, ranging from Colt here in Europe, Computer Sciences, through to Verizon and SoftBank and Singtel in Asia. Several of these companies are offering you the full range of choices. Computer Sciences, for instance, will give you infrastructure either as a managed service in your data center, or they'll give it to you in their data center, and in both cases, it's exactly the same pricing by the usage pricing. So they'll give you consumption-based pricing inside your data center or out of their data center. Identical pricing either way. The only difference is if you elect to take it in your data center, they ask you to make a 1-year commitment to 1/3 of the theoretical capacity of the hardware that they will drop into your data center. This is the kind of innovation that we're going to see in business models as we go forward in this space. Now, building on automated infrastructure, we need to speak to the other big trends in this industry, which are the renewal of applications and how we deliver the fruit of those applications to end users in a post-PC, multi-device world. In the area of renewing applications, summarizing here, we started over 2 years ago to invest particularly in the new generation of programming frameworks. We think the bulk of these new applications are going to be written by people under the age of 35 today. So we need to look very carefully at what the new generation of programmers are doing. And they have, by and large, voted with their feet and gone to the new programming frameworks like Spring, the Ruby family, now the Node family, etc. I mentioned earlier I started my working career in the late 70s, and my nightmare was that I would take my first job and they would hand me the COBOL Bible. And I wanted to do everything I could to avoid becoming a COBOL programmer. Today, if you hire a young programmer and you hand them the EJB Bible, they're going to be equally horrified. They want to work on a fundamentally more capable, simpler set of tools, and that's where we have been investing going forward. We've been investing in the new data fabrics that we think will underlie the next generation of applications. In particular, we have acquired a technology called Gemfire, which sits underneath some of the most demanding applications in the world. Gemfire is used by the United States Department of Defense to track all of their real-time assets. So every moving vehicle in the U.S. arsenal that has telemetry on it reports its status into this application. It receives 60,000 updates a second. Visa takes about 20,000 events a second, by contrast. So extraordinary scale that you can only achieve via a scale-out in-memory approach. We've introduced technology to simplify the deployment of data fabrics on top of virtual infrastructure. That's something we call vFabric Data Director. We're now, just this week, announced a new set of tools to help it easier to not only deploy data fabrics onto virtualized infrastructure, but to deploy applications onto virtualized infrastructure, and having deployed them, manage and monitor them. This is our family of vFabric Applications Management Suite. Then we've been thinking about where this all ends up. And this is to do with our work around something called Cloud Foundry. And Cloud Foundry was motivated by an interesting choice that the industry faces. Is the cloud era going to take us back to the bad aspects of the mainframe era? Are we going to go back to highly proprietary, top-to-bottom, vertically integrated stacks where you have to make a decision that once you've decided to develop and deploy your application on one of those stacks, you're trapped there forever? Just like in the old days, if you wrote for the IBM MVS environment, that was it. You know, if you wrote for the KIX environment, that was it. You were there forever. And there's certainly the potential that the cloud world could go that way as well. And there's something seductive about a top-to-bottom vertically integrated approach. There's something to be said, okay, we'll solve the problem of complexity by just handing it all over to one vendor, writing them a bigger check, and letting them take care of it. We think that that's, however, not what could or should happen. Instead, what we need to see is a new level at which choice can be introduced into the environment. We know that at the lower levels of infrastructure, we have to get to very high degrees of automation. That means tight integration, the lower down in the stack. But does that have to go all the way up the stack as well? If new infrastructure, as we've been talking about it, is becoming in some sense the new hardware, the stuff that you just want to work, what is going to be the thing that will give us application portability across the new hardware? Are we going to go back to completely proprietary operating systems there, or are we going to find the equivalent of Linux for the cloud era? And will the development and open source community in particular sit back and let us go back to a world of completely vertically integrated stacks or not? So over 2 years ago, we decided to not be passive in that discussion and hired some very experienced developers, a couple in particular who had worked on Google's Borg engine, which is the internal engine on which Google deploys all of its applications. And we put them to work on a layer that we now call Cloud Foundry. And this is designed to be, using the term very loosely, the Linux for the cloud era. This is the layer that will give you application portability as well as other attributes of high and rapid scaling that do so in a cross-cloud, multi-cloud world. And to draw the line on the fact that we believe that that should be open and a genuine fulcrum for choice, we released that as an open source project under an Apache 2 license and are encouraging the industry to take it and extend it, deploy it wherever they see fit. So this technology is out there. It's out there in its open source project, cloudfoundry.org. And it's there in a developer instantiation, cloudfoundry.com, which, where we've stood it up to introduce, trial the service, and get developer feedback on it. And we have about 30,000 developers today working with and deploying applications on cloudfoundry.com. But cloudfoundry.com is designed to be not only extensible in terms of the new programming frameworks, but it's designed to go across clouds as well. And we've seen the community already started to extend it. For instance, we released with the Spring environment, the Ruby family, Node family. That's now already been extended by the community to the Scala environment. It's being extended to the PHP environment. We stood it up on top of a vSphere-based cloud. Others in the industry are taking this and standing it up on top of other stacks, Amazon, OpenStack, etc. So this is our answer to this dilemma of, are we going back to a world of highly proprietary, vertically integrated stacks versus a world where we get a new tiering of integration with meaningful choice points as you go up the stack. And we're putting our money where our mouths are and are contributing to what we think will be the future going forward. Lastly is this issue of how do we provide the results of applications? How do we provide applications and information to users in the post-PC multi-device world? What we have to do here is to allow enterprises to pivot from installing applications to devices to instead installing applications to people. We need to make it possible so that people can, enterprises can associate capabilities with their employees, whether those be applications or data, and have those applications and data appropriately mapped onto whatever device the user has in his or her hands, and appropriately mapped from a security point of view onto whatever device the user has in his or her hands at that time of the day. This is a tough thing to do. It's going to require a lot of new pieces to be put into place, but fortunately, we have already made a start on some of those pieces. This builds off our work that we've been doing in traditional Windows desktop virtualization, or VDI, where we have just released our View 5 product, which basically is now across the board an incredibly competitive Windows virtualization product. But we need to go beyond that, and we are introducing a set of technologies that we use the phrase or family name Horizon for. And Horizon App Manager is our first step in the direction of starting to allow businesses to associate capabilities, applications, and data to people rather than devices. If you think about it, in the past, the Windows desktop fulfilled two roles in an enterprise. On the one hand, it was the user interface to a particular operating system, i.e. Windows. On the other hand, it was one of the mechanisms that IT used to control what capabilities a user got access to. That's where you installed applications, turned menus on and off, dropped files, etc. In a multi-device world, that second usage of the desktop has to get floated away from any device. That has to become a different mechanism that can be projected to many different devices. And Horizon App Manager is our first step in that direction. Having created that abstraction that allows you to associate applications and data to people rather than devices, you then face the problem of how do you then appropriately project those capabilities to a particular device. And this is where we introduced this week the work that we're doing under the label Horizon Mobile. And this is one of the techniques that we will use to appropriately project capabilities onto a particular kind of device, in this case, smartphones. So we announced this week with Verizon in the US and Telefonica here in Europe that we will be starting trials of a virtual phone capability. And the idea here, as Steve explained to you, is to allow enterprises to equip their users not with a physical phone, but a virtual phone. So the user goes and buys their own private phone, and then the virtual phone gets installed onto that, and the user, in essence, carries two phones in one phone. And the enterprise phone is in a separate virtual machine. This uses Type 2 hypervisor technology under Android to do this. So we're running Android under Android. And the work phone is controlled by the enterprise. Users can only go to the enterprise app store to get the applications for their work phone. And that's securely walled off from whatever happens on the personal side of the phone. So if somebody happens to have the misfortune of installing a hacked version of Angry Birds, it isn't going to sit there reading your corporate address book and transmit it to, Turkmenistan or wherever it is going. No comment on Turkmenistan, I apologize. So we're going into trials here, and this is one of the techniques that we will have to use in order to project appropriately and securely applications and data in a device-independent way onto devices that will be controlled by what's going on or influenced by what's going on in the consumer space, largely, not what's happening in the enterprise space. And then lastly, we're investing in a set of applications that we think will also be appropriate in this new world where users are no longer tethered behind desks, no longer necessarily using heavyweight devices. So we need to have a new generation of applications that reflect this as well. So that's a journey through the investments that we're making. Obviously, we're trying to bridge to the future here, make that bridge in terms of enabling IT operations to go into the world of not only virtualizing Tier 2 and 3 apps, but virtualizing mission-critical apps, and then building on that foundation to really deliver IT as a service, really be able to have the flexibility and agility, the different business models, precisely so that we can free up the time and effort to go after the things that really do matter in the long run, which is the new generation of applications that have to come into existence. Now, this brings our conference here today to a close. It's been a very successful conference, and I have to thank you, over 7,000 attendees. In some ways, the heart of our conference is really the hands-on labs that we run. At the labs in Copenhagen this year, we've created and destroyed over the course of 3.5 days 40,000 virtual machines. We ran a big lab session also in Las Vegas where we really pushed our own technologies to the limit. In Las Vegas, we actually ran our lab's infrastructure over a converged network. We actually had storage and compute on the same 10 gigabit network, and as they say, we had a lot of learnings as a result of doing that. Fortunately, we've applied all of those learnings for the event here in Copenhagen, and I'm told it's gone very well. We've delivered over 5,000 lab sessions in the course of the 3.5 days that we've been here. And lastly, we've served, I'm told, 75,000 cups of coffee. So with that, thank you very much. It was wonderful to be with you here again.